This is Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell on the Forge Audio Network.
Welcome to this episode of Forge Daily. I am your host, Mackenzie Barwell, checking in for the first time in a little while. We've had a break, but now there are some things to catch up on because yesterday, the official Concacaf Champions Cup draw revealed Forge FC's opponent for the 2025 tournament. And on top of that, we've got some exciting news from the USports Draft just a couple nights ago, where Forge selected a standout local talent from McMaster University and some attacking depth in a striker from the University of Montréal. So let's dive right into these topics, beginning with the headline. Forge FC have drawn Liga MX powerhouse CF Monterrey in round 1 of the 2025 tournament. The full schedule, including kickoff times and dates, will be released by Concacaf very soon. But first, let's unpack what this draw means for Forge. Monterrey are no stranger to success. They're one of the most accomplished and storied teams in the competition's history. In fact, they've got the 4th most amount of wins overall. They've won the competition 5 times and as early or recent as 2019 and 2021. Last year, they defeated Inter Miami in their pursuit of another championship 3-1, but then they had the script flipped on them in the semifinal, losing to the Columbus Crew 3-1. Now, if you're wondering why the name CF Monterrey might sound familiar to you, it's because this is the club that Forge FC's Daniel Parra is on loan from. And as you know, he made a huge impact this year, and he was a standout defender, playing a more dynamic role with the midfield and providing some attacking depth to Forge's back line. Not to mention, York United also signed Monterrey midfielder Jose Martinez and defender Orlando Botello for the 2024 season. So both Forge and the CPL really do have a first-hand insight into the quality talent that comes from their organization. Now, we've seen Forge play huge Mexican teams twice now in this competition. In 2022, they played Cruz Azul, and then last year, of course, going Guadalajara and playing Chivas. This time around, definitely not getting any easier. Next week, I'll have an opportunity to chat with Coach Bobby on a few things, but last night he did share his initial thoughts on the CPL newsroom.
Yeah, it's one of those teams you kind of have on your list that you'd like to play. When we look at the teams that we could face from Liga MX, I think you look at Monterrey and Tigres as being two of those teams that you want to face up against in the different challenge. Maybe staying away from Mexico City, which we know is a very difficult one. Not that Monterrey isn't, but it's one of those ones as a club. As I've said, it gives you a good feeling on the challenge that lies ahead. Can you go back to Cruz Azul series and you say, it's kind of being happy to be there, being happy to participate in this tournament, knowing the difficulty that it brings with it. And last year, I think it was about performance. Is we wanted to make sure we can go out and perform and play our football. And I think we showed that over 2 legs, both at home and away. This one, it's about playing 4 games in this competition. Each year, the challenge needs to be different towards the team and the group. You can't just think the same way. You can't be happy to be there. You can't be, just a part of a competition here. It's about how we extend this, how we go a little bit further. And, we've got a tough draw in front of us. And what we do every time when this comes up is, we get down to work. We analyze things, looking at our best opportunity to go about it. And, I always say the first best opportunity is as cold as possible at Tim Hortons Field in February. We haven't had that in the past 2 fixtures, so maybe we can get one of those for us, because you need every little advantage you can get. The same thing, you look forward to playing down there, making sure that the weather's good. The altitude's a little bit different than Mexico City. So all of that is something you have to prepare for. We'll look now at preseason. We had a few places for our warm weather training that we had earmarked. One of them was Mexico, so it looks like Mexico it will be. And it's an interesting series. There's also a connection when you look at Monterrey and Daniel Parra for us. And how important he's been to the team this year. And there's a little bit of familiarity there.
Bobby, of course, speaking to Forge's ability to rise to the occasion and really take advantage of the experience that they've had in this competition over the past couple years. And I thought, who better to talk to and understand that sentiment than Kyle Bekker? All right, Kyle, thanks for joining me once again. I guess we're just 2 podcasters you can't get enough, even in the off season.
That's it. Just got to stay locked in.
Yeah, of course, of course. Well, last night, as you know, the Concacaf draw took place. You'll be going back to Mexico, this time playing CF Monterrey. So, what were your thoughts when you saw another draw to a big Mexican club?
Yeah, I think initially you want to you're looking through the draft and you're like, oh, maybe we have a better chance against this team or this team, whatever it may be. But ultimately, when you're playing in this competition, anyone you get picked against is going to be a big test and something that ultimately you got to be looking forward to. I've said it over the years, time and time again. These are the games you want to play in. These are the things that are exciting. These are the challenges that you want to face. And when you're talking about CONCACAF and you go down to Mexico, those are the special moments. Those are the stadiums that you want to be playing in, the atmosphere. So it's definitely exciting.
Totally. Yeah. Every time I look at these stadiums that you guys go to play in and how crazy they are, I do think of the one liner that you got about playing in your backyard and visualizing yourself in these situations.
Yeah, it's honestly like when you're a kid, you obviously and you fall in love with the game, you're watching whether it's the Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, whatever it may be on the weekend, and you're seeing the packed stadium and that's what you get in Mexico. So it truly is special and it's a little bit of a childhood dream. And yeah, looking forward to it for sure.
I'm assuming, have you seen visuals of this stadium and what it looks like?
No, not specifically Monterey's, but I've been told that it's quality. Obviously, one of our own last year, Daniel Parra, he is on loan from Monterey, so it'll be funny for him, I think. But yeah, it's obviously a club that's had a ton of success in Liga MX and in Concacaf competition. So big challenge for sure, but one we have to be looking forward to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just want to show you this because it genuinely blew my mind when I saw the photo. It almost looks like a spaceship.
Oh, that's sweet. I think, they might be actually one of the venues hosting, World Cup games in Mexico, actually, yeah. As well as Chivas, who we got to play at, I think it was the Akron Stadium last year, and that place the facility was fantastic, so obviously gotta expect the best.
Well, that's just the thing. You just alluded to it there. You've been in situations like these before, even looking back as early as 2022 with Cruz Azul. And Bobby spoke with Mitch and Charlie in the CPL yesterday, and he talked about how this is not just about being satisfied in qualifying for this competition and wanting more and really having that ambition to succeed in CONCACAF now. So, can you feel that amongst the group? And have you felt that sort of develop over your experience in this tournament?
Yeah, I think the expectation to play in these games comes top down from the start of each year, and last year, like none other, the expectation was to be in it in this year coming up, and we're obviously excited and happy that we achieved that goal as a collective. I agree with what coach is saying in that you want to push yourself. You don't want to just be happy to be there. I think from a player's perspective, it's a matter of remaining humble, having that humility of where we are as a club, but just being brave enough to go in there because ultimately, when you look across the board, no one's going to expect anything from us. The beauty about sports is upsets happen all the time. There's underdog stories that everyone falls in love with, and there's I'm not necessarily saying that we're an underdog going into it, but you have to look at that and be real, essentially. Have that reality check, have that humility going into it, but just being bold enough and brave enough to go in and demand more of yourself.
For sure. Well, I think you could have even seen that in last year in the way that you guys showed up against Chivas. Even Dom told me about conversations he had with players on the pitch and them just saying, "Wow, you guys are right there with us," and that wasn't necessarily the expectation. Knowing that you guys really set the tone last season, starting with CONCACAF and how well you came out against them, what are some of those takeaways that you have from last year, and does it give you any confidence going into this time around?
Yeah, I think for any player who is a part of that game and will be a part of these games coming up, then you just have to learn from that experience. I think the massive thing about games like this is it is learned experience. You have to go into the game knowing that every single detail matters. We got done on a couple set pieces in the two legs last year, and that's something that I think you have control over. That's preparation. It's making sure that you're going to fulfill your duty. You're going to do your job. You're going to execute. You're not going to let your guy get to the ball first. Those aren't the little things that can happen in the game that are very difficult to control. You have more control in those situations versus just every the run of play, so to say. So those details, knowing that execution matters the most, and it's at the highest stakes or in those moments where you think you can take your foot off the gas a little bit. So anyone who's played in those games and will suit up for those 2 legs in the coming competition, you have to learn from it. We know we're gonna have a little bit of changeover this year, so it's the the classic challenge that I think we face in this competition. Obviously, the teams in Mexico are in the bulk of their season, so they have a little bit more match fitness, sharpness, and that's just a reality we have to come to terms with. It can't be an excuse anymore when we know the expectation is to be in this competition every single year. So you got to come in. You have to be able to put the work in this off season to make sure that we're giving ourselves as big of a possibility to have success as possible.
A huge thank you to Bex for joining me. I'm assuming the off season won't last very long, as Coach Bobby will likely get these guys out on the pitch because these games in February will come around fast. In other news, Forge FC have made 2 exciting selections in the CPL U Sports Draft this past week, starting with a McMaster midfielder, Paul Ekwueme. He was taken 7th overall, and the 20-year-old called it a big surprise and honor to be picked by the league's top team, especially considering he was actually at Forge's home opener in 2019 as a fan. And you can read more about that and Paul in an article Milty wrote recently on the Forge FC website. But in sum, Paul's journey has been quite unique as he trained independently by himself through high school to eventually make the varsity team at Mac. Coach Bobby described him by saying he's not flashy, but a guy who can play multiple roles, whether a number 6 or maybe even a right back. He's also a local player, and that matters to them. So he fits the profile and has the technical skills we want in a player. Paul recently went on CHCH and talked about his draft, his passion for the game, and the real grind that comes with professional football.
Working on these fundamentals, I know a lot of kids say, oh, it's boring, or just doing the same thing over and over again. But even when I was in play with my brothers, they might be tired or they might be busy with school or work. I'm just at the wall, making noise downstairs or in the garage, playing 1 or 2 touch with the wall, in the air, on the ground, left foot, right foot, doing the exact same thing over and over again for like the past 5 years, pretty much.
And I think a lot of people would find that to be monotonous, difficult, and maybe there was aspects of that too. But did you ever find joy in that grind and that repetition?
Honestly, I did. I think that's why I love soccer so much, because it's both my favorite hobby and my favorite work. Thankfully, I'm a pro now, so I can say it's my job now. So yeah, if you're bored and you want something to do, you go play soccer. Or if you're working, you go play soccer. So all the time I was doing soccer, so it wasn't an issue at all.
In the second round, Forge FC added Maxim Filion, a 6'2" striker from the University of Montreal. He's known for his 9-goal season in strength and set pieces. Now for Forge, with some absences in the number 9 position, especially late in the season, they see Filion as a valuable addition up top. With that, I'll conclude today's episode. I know it's technically the off season, but still a lot to be excited about. As an FYI, 2025 season seat holders will have access to the round 1 Concacaf Champions Cup match against CF Monterrey in February, so get in contact with your ticket rep ASAP. That day, as I said before, will definitely come fast. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and I'll be back to check in on the audio network soon.
This has been Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.
It's almost Christmas. What is the most goated Christmas song in your eyes? I feel like you just have a good one.
The thing that like jumps out the most is like the Home Alone, and obviously it got absolutely ruined with like the ding fries are done thing. But like that, like it's probably like that big orchestra that when that thing plays, that slaps. That gets you fired up, and you just like want to run around the house, set up a couple of booby tracks, and just really just get into the holiday spirit.
That's a banger. That's a banger.
Yeah.